If I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object all of them wholesale.
Checkpoint 1, secured. Checkpoint 2, secured. Checkpoint 3. Checkpoint 3 secured. All hands secured. Opening bunker.
Who on earth has the WEF invited to Davos? Oh, this is too much. You know this ain't going to end well for the doo-doo globalists. Let's get into it. So the doo-doos at Davos have all gotten together again. Of course, their annual event, the World Economic Forum's trip to Davos, they all go there. They hobnob, all these political elites and corporate elites, all hobnob and get together and try and plan our future. So, of course, we're all into it because I want to know, like, what are you guys planning for me? And as I'm doing it, normally these things go on year by year. You'll hear something creepy, maybe from Yuval Harari or some new player to the stage, talking about some global domination, nonsense, and promoting the Marxist culture, of course. But this time around, they invited a couple of different people, and this was interesting, and I'm going to get into why I think they did this. But they invited the enemy into their territory. And by doing so, they started with President Javier Milei, Argentina's new firecracker president, who's 100% libertarian and is obviously going to take Argentina to big places. And then they took a Heritage Foundation president, Dr. Kevin Roberts. Dr. Kevin Roberts posted this. He got to speak, and he had no intentions. I saw him on the Glenn Beck show talking about what he was going to say. He was on other shows talking about what he's going to say. He didn't sneak up on him and then just go rogue. They knew what he was going to do. And the question then becomes, why did they do it? But let me just get a clip here. This is from Heritage Foundation. This was their clip, their cut up of what went on. I haven't been able to find the full interview, and ironically enough, it is not on the WEF website. They did put Milei up there, President Milei, but they did not put Kevin Roberts. So I'm interested in why that is the case as well. Obviously, they had to put a world leader on their site, but they didn't put on their YouTube channel Kevin, and that was a bit disturbing or a bit concerning. Because if they're really trying to be open and get other opinions, shouldn't he be up there too? But this was really a different thing. We'll get into it in a second. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
One thing that Davos, you might say, and the people come here stand up for, is liberal democracy.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would, describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. I'll be candid here because I think I've been invited here to be candid. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. Elites also tell us that public safety isn't a problem in big American cities. Just travel to New York or Washington or Dallas, Texas. The average person will tell you that the lack of public safety damages not just the American way of life, but their life. Elites tell us that we have this existential crisis with so-called climate change. The solutions, the average person know, cost more human lives, especially in Europe during the time that you need heating, than do the problem and the problems themselves.
You getting the full vibe here, folks? This is he's just tearing into them in their own territory.
Fourth, China. The number one adversary, not just to the United States, but to free people on planet Earth. Not only do we at Davos not say that, we give the Chinese Communist Party a platform. And fifth, as we sit here, another supranational organization, the World Health Organization, is discussing foisting gender ideology upon the global South. These are practices that are under review, if not being rejected, by countries in Northern Europe. The new president, especially if it's President Trump, will, as you like to say, trust the science. He will understand the basic biological reality of manhood and womanhood. And do you know why? Not because of retribution, not because he's a dictator, but because he has the power of the American people behind him. Let me just correct the slight assertion you made there. We want Ukraine to win. We want to see Ukraine win with a lot more help from European allies. I think the United States has a role. Heritage has been clear about this for 2 years now, that there is a world in which we support military aid for Ukraine. Our first obligation in foreign policy is to look at it through the lens of what's best for the American citizen. Joe Biden has done a god-awful job in articulating what that is. The kind of person who will come into the next conservative administration is going to be governed by one principle, and that is destroying the grasp that political elites and unelected technocrats have over the average person. And if I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object all of them wholesale.
So that's great. The fact that, I mean, with the exception of Ukraine, where I might have taken it a step further and been like, we just want out of Ukraine. We just want to make sure Ukraine knows that they'll never get in NATO. That's what I would have said, because that's the real reason why this whole thing is going on. So I would say, yeah, if this war continues after we make sure that NATO and everybody in the world understands that Ukraine will never be a part of NATO, then we'll consider, if the bloodshed continues. But the bloodshed won't continue. It would end there. But otherwise, he hits it out of the park and just lets them have it on their own turf. So, so on top of that, all right, because it doesn't stop there, all right, they went ahead and brought in Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, and he went ahead and took it even, not took it further, but just he did a full breakdown. I mean, you should go on YouTube and check it out. He did a full breakdown of the positives of capitalism, the fact that it has lifted, where the world population used to be 95% in poverty. It took that, flipped it on its head, and made it so it's 95.5 the other way, where only 5% of the world's population were in poverty, and all of these great things that capitalism has brought about, all of which you could see on a graph as a hockey stick graph from the Industrial Revolution on, and the advent of liberty and freedom on. He points all these things out, and then he gets into the feminists, the climate change, and everything like that. Let's listen to Javier.
All that this radical feminism agenda has led to is greater state intervention to hinder the economic process, giving a job to bureaucrats who have not contributed anything to society. Examples, ministries of women or international organizations devoted to promoting this agenda. Another conflict presented by socialists is that of humans against nature, claiming that we human beings damage...
One thing that Davos, you might say, and the people...
All that this radical feminism agenda has led to is greater state intervention to hinder... All that this radical feminism agenda has led to is greater state intervention to hinder the economic process, giving a job to bureaucrats who have not contributed anything to society. Examples, ministries of women or international organizations devoted to promoting this agenda. Another conflict presented by socialists is that of humans against nature, claiming that we human beings damage the planet, which should be protected at all costs, even going as far as advocating for population control mechanisms or the bloody abortion agenda.
Folks, he's saying the quiet part out loud.
Unfortunately, these harmful ideas have taken a strong hold in our society. Neo-Marxists have managed to co-opt the common sense of the Western world, and this they have achieved by appropriating the media, culture, universities, and also international organizations. The latter case is the most serious one, probably, because these are institutions that have enormous influence on political and economic decisions of the countries that make up the multilateral organizations. Fortunately, there's more and more of us who are daring to make our voices heard, because we see that if we don't truly and decisively fight against these ideas, the only possible fate is for us to have increasing levels of state regulation, socialism, poverty, and less freedom, and therefore will be having worse standards of living.
And so Javier Milei breaks down pretty much similar points than Kevin Roberts did, but he did it in a way where he was more focused on the global stage, whereas Roberts was more focused on the American stage. But nonetheless, same message. So the question then becomes, why would they let these guys come up and talk at WEF, at Davos? And I thought about this for a while, but the reason why I believe that this happened is really twofold. Now, I talked to you guys a little bit about how the number one concern right now, we learned this year at Davos, the number one concern, more important than global annihilation through climate change, is misinformation. And what they tie that misinformation to is information about them primarily and their cause. And of course, anything disagreeing with it is deemed misinformation. So they're grappling with how to deal with that. And they understand that and they've mentioned this a few times too, how they understand that there's many people, I should say, who don't trust them, that they've become the face of all that is evil. And so they need to address that and rectify that. And part of doing that, in my humble opinion, is trying to show that you're bringing in opposing views, that you're bringing in people who do not think like you, that it's not just all one club of people who think the same way. Now, whether this backfires, and I believe that it will, or not, we'll wait and see. But we know what these gentlemen were going to say when they got up there. WEF, Klausy Boy knew what Milei was going to say and what the good doctor was going to say when they went up there. So there was no shock factor there for them. I think in the end, they understand, and I've covered, mass formation and conformity, etc. The people that are really all in on the globalist movement are either people who have been given some sort of stature by the movement, and so they don't want to let that go, because this is where you get all these people that get promoted to positions that they clearly don't belong in, and the reason why they do that is not because they think that somehow this person's going to do well, but they do it because this person knows that they're nervous as hell and are not going to do well, and they don't want to let go of that position though, so they will do whatever they are told. All right, and that's the crux of it, right? But the people that sit in at Davos, the people that they're speaking to on the stage, nothing is going to change their opinion. These people are in deep ideological subversion. These people are in deep mass formation. There is nothing. What they're going to do is when Milei walks off the stage, or when Roberts walks off the stage, they're all going to go to their little cafes and, whatever, and just, can you believe? I don't understand why they let these people in. Oh, I don't see it. They let this man in. I can't believe it. And they're all just going to hobnob and downplay everything that was said to them and go back into their pseudo-socialist mentality. They can't, if they were able to comprehend facts in the first place, they would not be in denial and saying things like, well, Marxism's never really been tried. We just need it without the dictator, right? like those types of things. And they're in. Those people are in. So nobody's getting swayed in that audience. But you know what? It was nice to see. Anyway, it was nice to see, another voice with that WEF background to it. My hat's off to both those gentlemen. And I hope, I hope we get to see more of that in the future, but I wouldn't look forward to it. I would say this was the olive branch this is their talking point for the future. Like, what do you mean we're all of one mind? We invited, Milei here. That's how it goes. And they'll refer back to this for years before inviting somebody else back. But anyway, I just wanted you guys all to see that. Hope you enjoyed it. Definitely take a look. If anybody finds the actual full conversation or full interview, whatever you want to call it, stage present, whatever it was, presentation with Robertson, please send it to me from Heritage Foundation. That clip is nice, but it doesn't paint a picture for me. I need to see the entire dialogue. And then the Milei one is actually on the WEF YouTube channel, so you can find that there. You could just search it in YouTube. There are a bunch of people playing it. Until next time, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I'm out.
And like that,